can't revoke that by executive order. It's in the
I
Constitution.
was going to say,
You're
I
going
thought
to
that
have
was in the
to.
Constitution.
Yes, it is. It's in the Constitution. You have to amend the Constitution.
This is The Times at 1 with Andrew Neil, live from New York. We're going to speak now to Andrew Sullivan, one of America's best-known commentators. He has a podcast and newsletter called The Weekly Dish. He was saying that he approached yesterday's inauguration with mixed feelings. So how is he now, the day after, the morning after, the night before? Andrew, what's your overall feeling?
Oh, the same mixture, I think, of excitement and nausea. You know, there's nothing, there wasn't, I mean, that speech yesterday was a series of provocations in many ways. The executive orders are a blizzard of instructions, but many of those instructions don't have any real legal force behind them. So it was a great day for Trumpian theater, I think, but not much else.
Do you get the impression that he's now a bit of an old man in a hurry, that he realizes 2 years to the midterms, he could lose the House or the Senate or both, then he does need to hit the ground running and he wants to get on with it?
Yeah, that is exactly what he said. He's always been obsessed with day one. I'll do this on day one. I'll do the other on day one. I'll be dictator for one day on day one. Yes, I think he does understand that. He must also understand that the majority in the House that he has is incredibly small. Maybe two or three at this point, depending upon a few vagaries. That may not get him through 2 years. I mean, he may be in trouble sooner than that for some of the important stuff that he tries to do.
And although he, as a kind of emperor, he likes ruling by executive orders because he doesn't have to worry about Congress. But I think, Andrew, you will know in more detail than me that these executive orders are still subject to the law and to legal challenges. And that is probably now going to happen on a number of them.
Oh, almost all of them. I mean, for example, let's give the birthright citizenship thing. We're going to revoke. You can't revoke that by executive order. It's in the Constitution.
I was going to say,
You're
I
going
thought
to
that
have
was
to.
in the Constitution.
Yes, it is. It's in the Constitution. You have to amend the Constitution to do that. He's just declaring these things as if they make any difference at all. Obviously, some of people who hear it will think that that's possibly what he's going to do, but he has no power to do that. We used to be panicked at that and think, well, maybe he'll force himself. But now I think we kind of accept that this is what he calls truthful hyperbole. He'd like to do it. He wants to do it, and he's going to tell you he's going to do it, but it's not happening.
He believes, I understand, that immigration or the breakdown of controls on the southern border under Biden was a bigger reason for him winning than the economy. And some of the executive orders, a number of them indeed, are geared to addressing that issue. That will be popular with those who elected him.
It will. It'll be popular with more than that. There's now a big majority, well, not a big majority, but definitely a majority in favor of mass deportations in America. That's really been the effect of the 4 years of Biden. And it's also true that with immigration, the president really does have a lot of authority. It falls within the executive branch, the enforcement of it. Now, obviously, the funding of it doesn't and the policies don't, but the actual enforcement of it. And in those areas, the president does have remarkable authority to do whatever he wants. So my view with that is that the thing to do with Trump is just watch, wait, see what he actually is able to do. I hate to have to say this. I don't think he's going to, well, I know he's not going to be able to get rid of 11 million. I would be surprised. And yesterday he changed his rhetoric a little bit to say criminal aliens.
Yes.
So he's now restricting it to people who've committed crimes in the United States, which was Obama's policy. And I think the great litmus test for him will be to see if he can deport as many people in 4 years as Obama did in his last 4 years, which was far higher than Trump managed to do in his first term.
Well, he may concentrate on deporting criminals, because with that it's a smaller number, and that would be, I thought, immensely popular. But when it comes to the criminals of January the 6th, 2021, he has pardoned 1,500 of them. Were you surprised by the extent of this blanket pardon? It's I would have thought, pretty hard now for the Republicans to claim they're the party of law and order.
Well, yes, especially since some of those pardons were of people who had committed violence.
Yes.
And if a president is coming in and saying, I'm going to pardon people who committed violence on my behalf, the obvious inference is that future people who will commit violence on his behalf know they will not have any consequences under the rule of law. The abuse of this pardon power, it's right there in the Constitution. The president really does have this power. But the last 10 years, we've seen it just become this battering ram through the rule of law. I mean, what Biden did on his last day of office,
Yes.
which is proactively pardon people for crimes they haven't been accused of, in case they might be accused of these things, of which Biden knows in advance that they are innocent. I mean, this really is a monarchy in that sense. It is.
Well, I don't know why you got rid of the British monarchy, because the British monarch is nothing like these pardon powers.
No, I mean, it's a big problem in the Constitution, but they just always assumed, and it always was the case, that the people who were pardoned were quite few. They'd already served their sentences. They'd had exemplary lives in prison. They'd done something to recompense. It was a way to bless that process. It was not a way, and Trump, of course, started this, to tell people, go do this criminal act and I will pardon you afterwards.
Right.
And that is a huge step.
I would say that on the positive side overall, putting aside the individual policies, there was a kind of optimism about Trump. I mean, he wasn't nearly as gloomy as 2016 or 2017 and the sort of American carnage. You know, it's a new golden age. Decline is not an option. And I did find, you know, coming from the other side of the Atlantic, that this optimism in America, even though times can be tough, it's in stark contrast to the gloom in Europe. I mean, the past 2 decades have seen America pull away from Europe in terms of power and prosperity. Maybe Trump will make it a 3rd decade of pulling away from Europe.
Well, yes, Trump is a salesman. That's what he's brilliant at. And he's selling America now. And Americans love that, and they will love that. It's still the case, however, that the optimism is shared not by much more than 50% of the country. There's a huge amount of anxiety and concern in the other half. And it's not clear that he has any real strategy to overcome that. He's maybe trying to be this happy Trump, this Trump at the McDonald's Trump, this beneficent King Trump, as it were. But I don't think it lasts. I think he is who he is. But you're right. We Americans are just incredibly and preternaturally optimistic, sometimes to an absolutely absurd degree. And Trump understands that and captures it as well as anyone. Although he, of course, it's a kind of phony. It's not Reagan's sunny, we'll get there. It is
Morning again in America.
Say what?
Morning again in America was Reagan.
Yes, it's not that. It isn't this dawning of a new. It's I will create a new age. And yesterday everything was terrible, and today I've saved the world. It's a weirdly, for America, it's centered around one person, him.
Indeed.
And Reagan, it was always centered around you, the people.
Andrew, we'll leave it there, but thank you for joining us today. Andrew Sullivan, host of The Weekly Dish.